How did a man with no famous company, no political office, and no public empire become friends with billionaires, presidents, royalty, and celebrities? Behind the luxury mansions, private jets, and a secluded Caribbean island lay a hidden world, one built on power, wealth, and the exploitation of young girls. For years, his inner circle remained untouched, while disturbing allegations continued to grow. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? How did he build an empire surrounded by the world's elite? And why did it all end in one of the most controversial deaths in modern history? This is the story of Jeffrey Epstein.
For decades, Jeffrey Epstein navigated the highest levels of global society as a reclusive billionaire. But the opulence of his public life stood in sharp contrast to the activities he was carefully concealing behind the closed doors of his estates. His entry into these circles was remarkably swift. Despite being a college dropout, Epstein secured a job in 1974 teaching math and physics at Dalton, one of Manhattan's most prestigious prep schools for the children of the elite. His Dalton tenure was short, but it initiated a pattern of upward movement through institutional failures. He moved to the trading floor of Bear Stearns, eventually becoming a limited partner before being asked to leave. He then surfaced at Towers Financial, a company later exposed as a massive Ponzi scheme. While his business partner was sentenced to 20 years in prison, Epstein walked away without a single charge. He used that momentum to launch his wealth management firm, claiming he only accepted clients with a net worth of at least $1 billion. It was a business with no public filings and no verifiable track record, but it projected an aura of immense, specialized financial power. This financial persona allowed him to function in the blind spots of traditional oversight. By presenting himself as an exclusive advisor to the wealthiest families, he created a space where normal corporate and legal scrutiny stopped at the door. That perceived wealth built a physical empire. He acquired a $77 million Manhattan townhouse, then the most expensive private home in the city, and a heavily fortified waterfront estate in Palm Beach, Florida. In the late 90s, he purchased Little St. James, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. He replaced native vegetation with tall palm trees to obscure the compound, transforming the island into an ultra-luxury destination designed for total seclusion and surveillance. To connect these properties, he operated a fleet of customized aircraft, including a Boeing 727. He used these planes to transport some of the world's most recognizable figures, including former presidents and foreign royals, and prominent scientists on global trips. In reviewing these networks, it is vital to distinguish between a social connection and active criminal involvement. Many public figures appear in these logs because they flew on his planes or attended his dinners, not because they were complicit in his specific crimes. However, Epstein used these associations to create a dense layer of social legitimacy. Being seen with the world's most influential people gave his operation a sense of protection that discouraged outsiders from looking closer at his business reality. That protection began to fail in 2005. A parent in Florida contacted the Palm Beach Police Department, reporting that their 14-year-old stepdaughter had been taken to Epstein's mansion and paid to massage him. Local police and the FBI spent over a year building a comprehensive case, identifying at least 35 victims. They drafted a 53-page federal indictment that included charges of sex trafficking and the abuse of minors, charges that could have led to a life sentence. But the trial never took place. Instead, U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta signed a non-prosecution agreement that granted Epstein and his co-conspirators immunity from federal charges and effectively shut down the FBI's probe. Epstein pleaded guilty to a state charge of soliciting prostitution and received an 18-month sentence. But for much of that time, he was granted work release, allowing him to leave the jail for up to 12 hours a day to work at a private office he had established nearby. To the public and his victims, the 2008 deal stood as a systemic failure. It demonstrated that even in the face of an FBI investigation, the legal system was willing to rewrite the rules for a defendant with sufficient influence. The case remained largely dormant for a decade, until 2018, when the Miami Herald published Perversion of Justice. This investigative series by Julie K. Brown exposed the full details of the 2008 deal and brought new evidence to light. The reporting included first-hand accounts from survivors who described how they were recruited and groomed into a trafficking network that operated across his mansions in Florida and New York. The series triggered an immense national outcry. The public pressure forced federal prosecutors in New York to re-examine the case, looking past the 2008 immunity deal that had previously protected him. On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested by the FBI and charged with federal sex trafficking. A raid on his Manhattan townhouse finally allowed agents to seize the surveillance equipment and photographic evidence that had been out of reach for years. The years of institutional oversight failures were finally ending. Investigative journalism had succeeded where the legal system had stalled, finally piercing the architecture of impunity Epstein had built around himself. But just 5 weeks after his arrest, the criminal case came to an abrupt end. On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. The city's medical examiner ruled the death a suicide by hanging. While later investigations by the Justice Department documented sleeping guards and falsified records, they also confirmed that no one else was in the cell at the time. These institutional security failures, occurring in such a high-profile case, fueled an immediate explosion of public skepticism across the country. Online theories about a cover-up circulated instantly, often focusing on the influential figures who might have wanted him silenced. However, the immediate consequence of his death was far more concrete. It ended the federal prosecution. The survivors were once again denied a public trial and the opportunity to see him answer for his actions in a court of law. The demand for institutional transparency eventually led to the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This legislation paved the way for the 2025 and 2026 unsealing of millions of pages of documents previously held as evidence. These files directly addressed the internet myth of a curated client list. Instead, investigators found a massive contact book of every person he interacted with over decades. The documents shifted focus toward his logistical network, mapping out the roles of key accomplices like Ghislaine Maxwell and detailing how they recruited and moved victims between properties. Throughout these releases, the Department of Justice reiterated a vital legal distinction. Appearing in these contact books or flight logs is not proof of criminal guilt. It is simply a record of association in a world where he had worked tirelessly to be seen. The Epstein saga remains a case study in institutional failure, but the eventual unsealing of the files proves that even the most complex network of influence has its limits, and that verified facts remain the only reliable path to accountability.